It is my privilege to welcome you to the Juniata community. Whether you are going to be on campus this fall or whether you're joining us remotely, this is a community you chose, and we are so glad that you are a part of our community. But it is no longer you and us. Now it is we are Juniatians. So what does it mean that you are a part of this community? How can you contribute to the Juniata community? And what does all that mean now, in the middle of a global pandemic that's turned our lives upside down, in the midst of a movement for social change to challenge a long legacy of racism and oppression, and in a season of heated debate in a presidential election in the United States? In this challenging season, I think it is even more important that we work to build a strong Juniata community. I'm not speaking with you about community today because I'm an expert, but because I want to share with you the things that I am learning about community. And I would be delighted to hear from you the things that you have learned and your experiences. What I most want us to embrace today is this: community is not easy. Being a community takes courage. This is always true, but it is especially true now. Consider Juniata's mission: to provide an engaging, personalized educational experience that empowers our students to develop the skills, knowledge, and values that lead to a fulfilling life of service and ethical leadership in a global community. Our goal is to help you lead. We want you to change the world. So what change do you want to see in the world? Do you want to see a world where every person has access to the resources they need to flourish, eliminating inequities of race and social class? Do you want to counteract climate change? Do you want to see a world where we all value each other and seek to eliminate interpersonal violence? Do you want to see a time where the coronavirus pandemic has ended and we can all put away our masks? No matter what change you want to see in the world, you can't do it alone. You need other people to work with you. You need a community. You can start with your own learning and reflection, and then you can build a community. First, some close friends, the Juniata community, and then even bigger. You can start here to change the world. I'm going to share with you 3 actions I think are important for a community to develop and grow with the goal of changing the world. These actions may sound easy in the abstract, but they aren't. It takes courage to be a community. Courage to connect. I heard from a couple of you during orientation how much you were looking forward to meeting new people when you got to college. Relationships are the bedrock of community, and those relationships take time and effort to develop. It takes courage to connect with others. My first week of college, I was looking for a student organization, and I showed up at the wrong place at the wrong time, and I walked in on a dorm meeting of upperclassmen. But one senior who was at the meeting, and part of the group I was looking for, gave me the correct time and place. And not only that, she chose to mentor me throughout that year because she was impressed by the risk I took to try to find the meeting. That was a huge reward for inserting myself where I didn't belong. So where will you try to connect with others? Will you seek out a student organization and commit to it for the first semester, even if the first few meetings are a little disorganized because they've had to switch to Zoom? Will you meet with your advisor and start developing a relationship? I would challenge you, take initiative. Find a place to participate. You are needed. Your gifts are uniquely yours, and Juniata needs you. Now, I want you to think of that same situation from the point of view of my mentor. Would you want to invite an interrupting, clueless student who couldn't even come to the right place at the right time? Would you want to invest time every week and draw that person into your own community? That's a sacrificial choice. It takes time and genuine openness to other people, despite first impressions. So will you introduce yourself to the person next to you in class, even though they're at least 6 feet away and you can't see their full face? Will you seek to include people who come from different perspectives so that your understanding is broadened? Maybe you can connect with someone who has different religious beliefs, or a different skin color, or a different nationality, maybe even a different political party. It takes courage to share yourself, courage to reach outside your comfort zone, to draw others into community, courage to listen when you might disagree. But the relationships we build are connections that tie our community together. Courage to care. While it is great to get to know each other, usually our closest friends are people we've known deeply over a long time, people who have traveled hard roads with us, who have shared our joy and our pain. You could choose to live your life always on the surface, ignoring others' pain and hiding yours, but you'd be missing out. It takes courage to care for others. When you walk down the hall, you can ask everyone, "How are you?" and get the typical "fine" in response. Or you can stop with a few and ask, "How is your day going? You look down. Are you okay?" Maybe you bake some cookies and share them with your friends. Or you send a text to a classmate to say how much you appreciated their help on a project. This year is going to take extra intentionality to connect with others as we practice social distancing. Will you take the time to reach out to someone you haven't seen in a while, since we won't pass each other in our one-way hallways? Will you risk the discomfort of sharing hard times? Will you work to protect others, disrupting situations where others are being hurt? This year, we have the privilege of showing our care for each other by working to protect each other's health. This isn't my favorite fashion statement, but I will choose to wear a mask to protect you. I will put your health above my preferences and my comfort. That's part of being a community. Perhaps even more difficult than looking out for others is letting other people care for you. When you have a bad day or get bad news from home, who will you share it with? When you mastered a difficult idea and want to celebrate, who can you tell? It's hard to be vulnerable, especially in a new community, but I would encourage you to find a few people who you can share your ups and downs with. Let other people show their care for you. Courage to change. As we care for each other, we start to understand each other's perspectives, and our world expands. We see the need to grow and change, to become who we want to be. However, change is not comfortable, and it takes courage. Even good changes can seem overwhelming. I entered college planning to be a high school math teacher. Nearing the end of my first year, a professor took me aside and asked me to consider going to graduate school in math. Now that sounds like a wonderful thing, but I'm a planner. And I had known since I was 5 years old that I was going to be a high school math teacher. So this compliment was just completely unsettling to me. It totally rocked my world. I ended up crying in my professor's office, and I don't know what he thought about that. As this regalia I'm wearing shows, I did eventually listen to my professor, and I went to graduate school. But even this good change was something that I wrestled with. Many changes are much harder. Sometimes we are careless and we hurt each other. Even when we work to care for each other, we make mistakes. We often see areas in ourselves or in our community that are hurtful or unhealthy. Do you have the courage to address this need to change in yourself and in others? My senior year, there were 10 of us who lived in doubles and singles around a common area. One night, I was talking about my roommate with some friends in the common area, and she overheard. I said some things that I thought were just friendly jokes about my roommate, but they were really hurtful to her. She confronted me in her pain, and I was shocked. I had to ask myself not just what my intentions were in what I said, but what the impact was on my roommate. I apologized. I listened to her perspective. I poured energy into our relationship. I slowly rebuilt trust with her, though it was a very uncomfortable couple of months in our room. The relationship was restored, but I learned to be much more careful about what I said about other people and how it would sound from their perspective. This is a change that I have tried to take with me, but it is a lesson I keep learning over and over. You are likely to make mistakes within the Juniata community, or to bear the brunt of other people's mistakes. One thing about community is that we are close enough to wound each other. I would encourage you first to question yourself, your assumptions, your understanding, to question others, to learn what it is like to walk in their shoes, to question why they did something, to listen to their perspective with an open mind. This all takes energy and effort. It takes courage. You might also need to challenge others. You need to stand up to protect others and to protect yourself, doing this in a way that you can be heard and that the growth and change that needs to happen can take root. Then you need to work to rebuild those relationships. Part of this process is giving each other grace, recognizing that you also make mistakes, and you need to extend favor to others even though they don't deserve it. Giving grace and forgiveness to others and to ourselves is central to being able to move forward and continue to grow and change. This courage is particularly important as our society is coming to grips with our history of racial and social injustice. We recognize that the U.S. has not protected all its citizens equally. We have not granted the same humanity to all our citizens. Like all organizations and institutions in this culture, the Juniata community needs to address this injustice. We need to question our own perspectives and assumptions and educate ourselves so we can be allies. We need to stand up with our brothers and sisters of color and promote their well-being within the community, both as individuals and as a group. As we change and grow, every individual and group within our community is strengthened. So as we begin this new semester, I would challenge you to be courageous. Have the courage to connect with new friends, especially people who are different from you. Have the courage to care, to take time to ask how others are doing, and to listen. Have the courage to change, even when it requires discomfort and confrontation. Together, we can build a community full of interesting, inquisitive, hardworking, and fun individuals. A community where our individual stories influence and are influenced by our larger collective story. Take courage to be a community, Juniata.